I don't know what happened, Michael, but your transmission is skipping like crazy. I don't know what happened there, but that is. Mm-hmm. So say something now, Michael. I want to hear.
I have had internet interruption.
Okay, yeah, much better. I wanted to start off this. A lot more people said that they were coming on. Let me see if anybody is waiting. Is there anybody else waiting at the moment?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, we got someone else coming up. Kathleen is coming up, and Kathleen should be on here soon. I'm seeing her name on the screen, McGuire, and Kathleen. Oh, there you are. How you doing there, Kathleen?
Okay.
I'm in the park. I've been enjoying being in the park.
I'm so glad you could join us today. And amazing. Well, we could just start this off just quickly right now before a few more people come in. It's only 5 after 2, and I want to wait a little more before we start the actual. Tom, within a minute, what is something that's on your mind right now that you'd like to share with the group here?
There you go.
Take about a minute or less. Go ahead.
Okay. What's on my mind is that I am overjoyed to see on the news, I mean on NY1, one after another, all of these different private organizations, nonprofits and so on, who are preparing vast amounts of food and giving them out for free for everyone who shows up. You know, nobody has to present any green card, any ID of any kind. They don't have to prove that they're needy, nothing like that. Everybody who shows up is getting food, and they prepare whatever it is, tens of thousands of meals a day, something like that. I think that's absolutely wonderful. I think it's the greatest thing I can possibly imagine.
Thank you for that comment. How about you, Curtis? Is there something on your mind right now? Take about a minute or less. Go ahead.
No, I initially contacted you, I guess, by interest along the lines of disclosure. I'm basically here to give that support, and look into it, work with others along that line.
Okay. Curtis, all right, thank you. Carol, if you would please, share with us about something on your mind right now.
The same thing that's on everyone's mind. I'm interested in many, I've been listening to David Icke.
Kathleen, hang on a second, Carol. Kathleen, to put the mute on yours.
I'm so sorry. Okay, yeah, let me find it. I'm sorry.
Oh, that's okay. What's going on is the wind is interfering a lot. Okay. But you can hear us, right? Okay. And when it's your turn, just turn the mute back. Okay. Okay, Carol, please go ahead.
No, I was just saying, I'm listening to people I've never listened to before, like Simon Parks, David Icke. I'm not all with him, but he's very interesting, so I've been listening to him. I have a friend who used to be on radio, and he's been doing all these rants that are also interesting, talking about things that are going on around the world, how how we may lose our civil liberties here, things along those lines.
I agree with that, too. There's more news sources going on than alternative news. So thank you for that. Okay, Michael, in a minute, just what's on your mind right now? What's going on at the moment?
Well, I gather there's been some, New York City is having some discussion. There's a West Side community group that is involved in trying to work out the rent issue, i.e. not paying. There's a West Side Community Alliance or something like that. So that's good to see in New York that they're saying, hey, wait a minute. So that's sort of on my mind. Also, Out of Shadows is on my mind because somebody asked me to send it to them. You know what Out of Shadows is, right? The documentary that the stuntman in Hollywood made about the Hollywood the horrors of Hollywood and so forth, and the sex abuse and so forth. As he gets to later, he goes very slowly, and it's a good red pill for normies who don't really know what's going on. I sent it to a bunch of people. They pay no response, but to people I didn't think were really zoned in on it. So that's on my mind.
Absolutely. And Michael, we can get much more into that because that's quite interesting. So we'll do that a little bit in the program. Okay, Kathleen, if you would unmute now and just tell us what's on your mind.
What's on my mind are the protests that are going on. Is there too much interference?
No.
Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, absolutely.
Oh, okay. All right. The protests that are going on, mostly by the deplorables, why we're not standing up, why we're accepting this extension in New York to May 15th. We need to be standing up and demanding to stop this lockdown, that all of their data is jiggered. The masks are actually more harmful for your health. This social distancing is just a psyop. And people in the Midwest, the deplorables, they may not have a whole huge consciousness, but they get this. And it's unfortunate on the coast that we pointy-headed liberal Democrats, lefties, are clueless that we need to be protesting this, not seeing how we can help our fellow COVID, corona people. The coronavirus is a seasonal flu, and it's all bullshit so that they can do their global coup d'etat.
Well said, Kathleen. We're going to get into more of that. Absolutely. Thank you for saying. Right now.
Nick, it's frozen. Oh, there it goes.
Okay. The question was, what was on your mind right now? Within a minute, just something that's really right on your mind now. Go ahead. Sonia, can you hear me?
Yes, hi.
Hi, there you go. All right. What's on your mind right now, Sonia?
My turn now? Okay. Now that I'm, home all day, I have time to go through your emails that you've been sending me. Wow. Where do you start?
We are on fire. We are absolutely on fire. You couldn't be more right. I have a hard time myself getting to all that.
Oh my God, especially this thing with the toxic vaccine that traces your every move through 5G network. I mean, it's scary. The nanotechnology is, I've really been looking into this. Thanks to your input. I know now, definitely no vaccine for me. That's for sure.
Oh, boy, that's an understatement, Sonia. Absolutely right. And we're getting a lot more information on that. Did anybody hear my podcast last night with Mary Jo Fahey?
Yes.
I thought she was brilliant. She's a brilliant, deep researcher. And she talked about that a little bit.
Yes.
And she had some amazing things. Guys, if you didn't get the podcast, with the information I gave you, you can go and hear it because it's all archived and it is really worth hearing. And we did part 1 and 2 about AI technology, and this was part 2, and she's brilliant. I mean, she is absolutely amazing. I'm so glad, Sonia, that you could hear it last night.
Yes.
Elizabeth, can you hear us? Elizabeth, are you there? I can see you on the screen. Unmute. There you are.
Yeah, hi.
Elizabeth, hi. I'm so happy you're here. Welcome.
Hi.
Welcome. And the question was, within a minute, what's on your mind right now? Like, what is one of the main burning issues right now? If you can just share it with us.
Well, I watch a lot of YouTubes. I don't have any of your links yet. I joined very recently, so that's why I would like to be on the distribution list. But well, I totally believe that we shouldn't be all in such a big lockdown. But on top of that, I'm concerned about the Chinese Communist Party. Obviously, I watch a lot of the Chinese side of the things, and definitely they are those, Xi Jinping and those are evil people. They are trying to take down this country. It's very scary. So I encourage people to listen to Steve Bannon and Miles Kwok. They definitely are at least exposing the evil on the Chinese, not the Chinese people. I mean, Chinese people are normal people.
Right.
It's just trying to live a life. But the Communist Party is really scary stuff.
Oh, you're absolutely right on the money on that. And there was a couple of incredible videos that we put on the dnny news blast. Did you get the news blast service, Elizabeth? Do you get that?
No, actually, I really haven't gotten anything from you per se. I just, from the meetup, I signed up for this. At first, there was a live meeting that was supposed to happen, I think in March or something. But obviously, we started the lockdown just then.
Okay, so at some point, do you have my email address, Elizabeth?
Yes, I do.
Okay, just give me an email after the program, after this is over, and just say, Nick, put me on the news blast. Just say that, and I will absolutely put you on there this afternoon. There's so much stuff there, and what you're identifying about the Communist Party, there's incredible videos that we have that really get into that in detail, and you'd be very interested.
Yeah, and on top of that, on the UFO side of things, I mean, I've been following Shayana's work. So basically, there should be a Chiron blast coming at the end of May. So, that should help.
Okay.
Anyway, hopefully.
What I'm concerned about is the fact that no one is talking about the good work that's being done, like Tom was saying, with the availability of food and food pantries and the work people are doing.
Actually, not too bad. We're getting into springtime now.
Yeah, well,
About that, positively done.
Well, I'm interested in the link between multi-dimensional war on the universe versus what is outpicturing in the 3D.
Are saving us. So we're one person at a time to talk, please. But yeah, that's a good point. Okay, so I guess we can go right now to a little bit more in depth. Tom, we're going to start with you. We're always going to go from the top left of the screen to the going right, just like we read, going from left to right. Then we'll go down to the next level with Carol, and then Michael, and then Kathleen, and then we'll go to the third level with Sonia and Elizabeth, okay? So, Tom, more about your concerns now about, you mentioned one thing. Talk a little bit more about what's going on.
Well, I think that it might be good for everyone to hear this. I wish you could have heard it, what I heard on the phone. The severity of the situation, I think I mentioned this on the last meeting, has actually motivated me and scared me enough to go see a lawyer and pay $1,250 and get a will, and then further than that, to also make all the arrangements with a funeral home, to have a funeral and be cremated, and that whole thing is more than $10,000. But I thought, my God, better do it. If you get the virus and you die from it, and suddenly everybody else has to chip in money, I don't want that to happen, right? So, anyway. I was just curious, because we see all these things on the news with Elmhurst Hospital and those gigantic refrigerated trucks parked outside, and they say that they're filled up with bodies, and they don't want to stack them on top of each other and so on. So each one of those trucks can only hold about 20 in one layer. I was concerned about that, and I thought to myself, I would like to know what do they do with the bodies eventually? What do they finally do with them? Do they cremate them themselves? Do they just bring them to the morgue? What if these people have arrangements like me is going to be in a few days when the check clears, and they pay $10,000, with arrangements with a funeral home, and the funeral home can't get the body? What happens with that, right?
That's an incredible question. Nobody has addressed that, and that actually is a concern. You're absolutely right.
Okay, so I didn't know exactly who to call. So first I called 311, right?
Oh.
And they said, we don't have that kind of information, and we don't think that if anybody who does have it, we don't think that they're going to give it out to the general public, right? So then I called Elmhurst Hospital, right? And The man I spoke to was probably one of those fellas at the information desk, right? And I wish everybody could have heard what he sounded like. What I think is that anybody who wants to try to claim that all this is the flu and the common cold and so on being misdiagnosed, if you would have heard his voice, he said, no, this is vicious, this is horrible. The way these people are dying, it's like they're choking on their own fluid in their lungs, like they're drowning in a swimming pool or something. That doesn't happen with the flu, and the business about the ventilator, anyway, the very last thing that he said to me before he hung up, and he quite clearly had to hang up because he had other people he had to talk to and other things he had to do, the very last thing he said was, and I quote, "This is biblical." And all I can say is, if anybody wants to try to claim that this guy is a puppet, and there's people from the deep state or from the cult or from whatever it is that are telling him to say these things and he's an actor, if you would have heard that voice, the worry and the panic and the desperation and, of course, the fatigue, working all these hours on that, that was enough for me to believe that it's real, So that's what, yeah.
Thank you. That you're identifying something that no one has identified yet, and that could be a problem.
Oh.
I would say that if you're going to go into a hospital for a checkup, or you feel as though you really are sick, I would put all the information, if you have that, into a couple of your pockets, write it down,
Yes.
and have it on you just in case.
Exactly. I forgot to say, he answered my question, what happens with the bodies? And he said, what happens is that the relatives and friends of the people who come to the hospital, who they've been communicating with, they are calling the hospital every day, and if the person passed away, they will call and they will find out. And it's the responsibility, exactly what I did, of the person who could potentially become a casualty of it, to inform their loved ones what funeral home they have the arrangements with and all that stuff. And he said, he was a little embarrassed to say it, but he said, well, there's a lot of different things that we do. After the guy's dead, we root through their pockets and we pull out their wallets and we look for, cards in there and pieces of documentation and stuff, and then we, maybe it says notify next of kin and all that. He said, yeah, that's what we do. He wasn't proud of it, but he said that's what they do.
Absolutely.
Yes.
That makes total sense.
Yeah.
Thank you for that, Thomas. Yeah. Okay, Hal, you're next. Go ahead.
Building on what
Who's next, me?
Oh, it's Hal. The transmission seems to be temporarily locked or something.
They're not fake. The funeral homes are overcrowded with people who have died.
Yeah.
And again, they do whatever they can to meet the next of kin. They're talking in some cases or if it's going to be cremation. And, he said, unfortunately, these stories are true.
Yeah.
That it's, and a lot of the stories about no one is dying from the coronavirus, it's a matter of a lot of people are dying from complications or pre-existing conditions that happen, that it affects. But unfortunately, like Tom said, these stories of the amounts of people are very real. And if the people that I was talking to are actors or stooges, they're some of the best actors I've ever seen.
Yeah.
Well, thank you, Hal, for that. Okay, Curtis.
I'm sorry, you froze again?
Oh.
Go ahead. Oh, unmute your, there you go.
I can't hear you.
I think go ahead. I think their transmission is frozen, but I can hear you fine and see you.
Well, I'm sorry, what was the question?
You hear us now?
I can hear you now.
Okay.
Well, now I lost you again. No, I can't hear. Maybe you want to go on to the next one. I'm not sure what your question was there, actually.
Learning how to record your name. What? I was just asking you a bit more about your about what you want to talk to.
I'm sorry. What I want to what?
Just whatever you would like to talk about.
Oh, I just, well, to be honest with you, I'm where we are now. I haven't been so much the effect of all this. I just, I really am taking the view that I don't, want to cause any panics or, I will watch various things about how it's advantageous not to get yourself stressed. Although I do recognize, there's no sense in ignoring what's going on and, being in full recognition of that. At the same time, I have to agree with, keeping one's health in shape by not stressing oneself to the limit. I guess that's all I could say about it.
Okay. Well, I think what you're saying is that have to do a balance here. Life's got to be a balance.
Right.
And that absolutely is good advice. Thank you for saying that. Carol, you're next, please. Go ahead. Carol, unmute yourself.
Okay, I have a
here we
few
go.
things.
Yeah.
I have a few things I wanted to mention.
Sure, please go ahead.
I saw a movie last night called Contagion. It was made in 2011, and it seemed to be a dress rehearsal for this pandemic. They even had Dr. Sanjay Gupta of CNN on it talking about it.
Oh.
They also had a scene where a funeral home would not accept a body because it had been infected. I want to add to that a friend of mine, his wife, passed away about 2 weeks ago from complications of the virus, and they are holding a wake for her. So it's in New Jersey, so maybe the rule is different there. And to Nick, I wanted to say that you sent out a video, one of your videos. I've been, as Sonia said, I've been home, so I can watch a lot of them. And the subject was a TED Talk given by Bill Gates, where he talked about pushing vaccination. Do you recall there was a section that was removed from the official YouTube version, but someone had copied it before and they added it to it?
Oh, yes. Oh, yeah.
Well, this morning I was watching the Sunday morning show on NBC, and they were talking about a coming merger, not a merger, but a partnership between Google and Apple. Yes. About downloading a software app for cell phones that can identify who, if you're using your cell phone, you can walk down the street, then it will identify who's been exposed. This app is being used now in China. There it's mandatory perhaps, but on today's show, they had a sales rep there who said, it would be voluntary here. And so if you've walked down the street and you've been exposed, it will alert you. I thought I'd mention that.
Yeah, no, I did see that. I hope everybody did too. Thank you, Carol. That's a very important thing. We're going to go back to that. Okay, Michael, you are up. Unmute yourself, please, Michael, and go ahead. You have the floor.
Hear me now? All good?
You have the floor, you have the ceiling, and you have the walls, Michael.
They tried to make me take a vaccine, and I said, no, no, no. I've been posting that all around. They all get it.
Thank you.
I've also been posting, because it came on TMC last, Turner Music Classics last night. I've been posting, I want you to get up. I want you to go to the window, and I want you to stick your head out and say, I'm mad as hell, and I'm not going to take it anymore. So those both occurred to me lately. That's what's been on my mind. Also, this lady has posted a very good comment, and I will just go as quickly as I can over the basics. She says, we need to tell legislatures we have options. We have a constitutional right to take risks. Life is full of bacteria and viruses, many of which spread before symptoms manifest. We have a right to receive or refuse vaccines. The data has been inaccurate, purposely overblown to justify government overreach at worst. Stop allowing the government to destroy the food supply, small businesses, medical autonomy, access to health care, religious gatherings, privacy rights, fellowships. And she concludes by saying, When the new normal is filled with starvation, depression, suicide, imprisonment, government spying, and pure desperation, the virus is going to look preferable to the world that you helped facilitate. That's enough for me.
Wow. Wow. Thank you, Michael. Much more on that. Okay, Kathleen, if you can hear us, unmute, please, and go ahead.
Okay, hi, this is Kat.
Please go ahead.
Oh gosh, I have tons to say, but I'll try to limit it. Well, I get frustrated with all the talk about the virus, because to me that's just the thing to keep us all distracted while they do the real thing that has been in the making and the plans. Agenda 21, Agenda 30. People might want to look at the World Economic Forum, which is Davos, the billionaires.
Yep.
They have a whole COVID action plan that's right in keeping with Agenda 21 and Agenda 2030, and part of it is lay a virus on them, lay a pandemic on them while we do all of this other stuff. And people are looking over there, it's like it's really happening over here. So, the guy who had the body and it's biblical, it's part of the propaganda. Of course he's going to say that, like he's authentic. He's gotten the same PSYOP programming messages. So I'm really looking at what's really going on behind the curtain. This pandemic thing is just the curtain, and everyone's taking it at face value. And should we social distance 5 feet or 6 feet? Should I wear a good mask or a bad? I'm looking at what are they planning on doing? How are they doing it? Where is it going? And how can we protest this? But anyway, the thing that I mostly want to talk about is, or just put a few words in, is this whole xenophobic anti-Chinese agenda that is extremely familiar from 9/11, where instead of the Chinese, it was the Muslims. And we got to point fingers at those terrible terrorist people. Chinese are authoritarian. I'm not going to say I love their government, but they're not out to get us. The hit in Wuhan was a U.S. hit that was bioengineered. It was an attack against them. China is not going to cripple their own economic government. Why would anyone hurt themselves like that? And now what is being planned, I don't think people know that they're they've changed the laws so that they want Americans to now sue China for coronavirus. No longer sovereignty, it's called sovereign immunity rights in the legal community. They're also saying that U.S. is now allowed to attack Chinese ships in a pirating way to get back what they owe us because they started the coronavirus. All kinds of similar weapons of mass destruction. This is just weapons of mass destruction 2.0. Different name, same game. Now it's Chinese, and now they're doing all of this stuff against us. And it's very easy for people to want to point the finger out who's the enemy, who's doing the evil Chinese, when in reality, at the very top, just like Republicans and Democrats are both being puppeteered by the same people, at the very top, the Chinese experiment of authoritarian, how do we control humanity, versus the, quote, democratic West experiment of how to control humanity, until they have full global control, which is coming in 2030. That's the kind of the end time for this. We're at the very beginning of the shot across the bow. And 2030 is the end, and we're just starting. And so you got to get people thinking about a pandemic because so they don't see what's the whole game plan from now till 2030. When they truly have a globalist government, and they no longer need to have the internecine. I think it's China now. We're all people, and they're just using various tools to control us. So as long as we keep these internecine battles between Republicans and Democrats, that's really like that. I mean, it's just all made up, and we're all being orchestrated by the mainstream media, who is being puppeteered, and to buy into this whole China thing. Of course, the Chinese government isn't, they aren't democratic and humane, but we aren't either. And we just call it with fancy words, and we're all being puppeteered by the top. And so they want us to get into a war. And what better war? They're the enemy. Now we have to go to war. This is 9/11 all over again, only the stakes are much higher because this is it. They're really, what they've been planning for over 10 years, now it's coming. And so that's what we have to focus on, not their pandemic, anti-China, go to war with China, none of that. This is humanity against this evil cabal. Thank you.
Kathleen, thank you so much for that. Just, if you will, mute yourself so we don't get background noise. And I got to just add, before we go on to Sonia, is that I recently was reading, and Michael, maybe you know more about this, is that the secret meeting about 8 or 10 years ago was with George Soros. It was with the Rockefellers. And this is the surprise. Also at the secret meeting, planning what was going to happen, was somebody named Oprah Winfrey and Michael Bloomberg. Oh my God, hello. I mean, when I heard that, it was like, wait a moment, stop the music. And that was the secret meeting, and they said that's what we were planning. That's that meeting, so that's shocking. Okay, Sonia, please, go right ahead.
Yeah, I know. I looked into that. It was all about depopulation, to control, and anyway, there's this movie. I wish I can remember the name. It was like preparing us to what's to come. It was about this young teenage girl in the hospital. She had this immune system that wasn't functioning. She couldn't be around people because she'll catch whatever they have and she'll die. So she fell in love with this young guy that she saw at the hospital, and she was allowed to go out with him for a small amount of time, but she had to walk with a 6-foot hole between them. Okay, 6 foot. That rings the bell. 6 feet. Okay, but at the end, she loved him so much. She got closer than 6 feet, and she died. All right. So I think that was the fifth. So I think that movie, and it came out last year. I think it was to instill to us to remember the movie. Remember, you get closer than 6 feet, you're gonna die. So that's that fear factor. Hollywood is in cahoots. And
that's the understatement going. And there was a movie a while back. It was Escape from New York. Did anybody see that? Right, and I'm thinking of the people who have left New York and going to Westchester or to the New England area to try to get out of New York and there's just a little more room to walk around without people around you. And I couldn't help but think of that movie because there's a lot of parallels to that one too. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, and I just want to add, there was one of your emails and it was from Veritas TV, Verista, VERITAS space TV that you emailed to me. Anyway, in there they show that's an ad that the Center for Disease Control placed on November 15, 2019. It was a public health advisor, in brackets, quarantine program, open period from November 15, 2019 to May 15, 2020.
Whoa, there we go. Thank you for that. Connecting the dots, right? That's what we're doing, Sonia. And there's a lot of dots to connect right now. Boy, it's more than ever. Okay, Elizabeth, please, you've been very patient. Elizabeth, unmute, if you will, and just share a little bit more about your thinking. Would you please?
Well, first off, I am upset that every single day the media is attacking our dear president. I think that, Trump is doing the best that he can. And the threat of the Chinese government is real. I mean, we're not talking about people. We're talking about the government. They don't care about what happens to their own people, right? They can kill them all. They don't care. There is a lot of infighting within the Chinese Communist Party. If you watch any of the Chinese language YouTube stuff, you would hear a lot more about it. I do follow that quite a bit, and I absolutely believe that the Chinese Communist Party is trying to take over the world. Another thing is how this virus happened. The best and most credible thing that I have seen is from a psychic called Simon Parkes. He's from the UK. His last name is Parkes.
Yeah.
And his March 12th, 2020, one of his YouTubes, and he explained it quite well. It's an accident, meaning that the virus was manufactured in P4 lab in Wuhan. However, it's some employee, some dude who's trying to sell it in the wet market, like a James Bond movie, but before he could sell it to the big bad guys, he was shot, and it was released accidentally, which is why, the West has sometimes to battle this, like Trump et al., because the really bad guys were caught, like, in an accident, so now they have to scramble. But, of course, I don't explain it well, but as well as Simon can, so I encourage people to listen to that. I hopefully by May, I think that, fifth dimensional energy on up would be able to cure this. Hopefully.
Yeah, you were saying that it's the Chinese people themselves are good people. It's the government. Ever since I was a kid, when I see the governments doing what they're doing, all governments, and then I look as I see what the people are like, and I always think the people are good people of all the countries. I just see the people as just good people trying to get through life, raise families, do a career, do the best they can with their lives. And it's the governments that are wild. They're the ones that are starting all the trouble constantly, and the wars and everything else. You get into that too. But I always thought that common people are always friendly and are friends. I always have thought that. So I agree with what you just said about it's not the common people, it's the governments and what's going on with that.
Yeah, and look at what happened to Hong Kong, right? All the protests. I mean, Hong Kong people are Chinese people, and they don't want that government from the mainland just basically trample over them. Just think about that.
Yeah. One more comment, and then we're going to go around again. When I see Dr. Fauci and is it his wife or his assistant? I'm not sure who that is. The woman that's with him, and he's in back of Trump on all these new conferences. And at first, I got to tell you, I liked him, but then I realized I don't like him anymore. In fact, I'm getting really bad vibes. And as we're getting more news about him and his background, it's shocking where he's been and who he's been talking to and the funding that's going on and all his relationships with Bill Gates. That was
yeah, Bill Gates is scary, and Fauci is too. I hope that Trump fires the dude.
A lot of commentators have said that Fauci is really a puppet of Bill Gates, and so is the woman. And the more I saw her, I got to tell you, the first time I even saw her on the screen, I just got some feeling in my gut that this was something to be very wary of. I know, me too. Me too. At least you guys are lucky. You don't have to listen to the mayor of Chicago. She is so annoying. And the governor too in Illinois. These people, all they ever do is complain. And as if Trump was doing such a bad job, well, you try to do it. You know what I mean? Anyways.
We have de Blasio. De Blasio we have in New York.
That woman itself, I remember thinking, this is true, I remember thinking of who's the couple, the crime in the 40s, Faye Dunaway played.
That was Bonnie and Clyde.
Bonnie and Clyde.
That was in the 30s.
30s, Bonnie and Clyde. And the movie that came out, the Bonnie and Clyde movie, and I looked at that woman with Dr. Fauci, and I thought, she's like looking at the door for a getaway. I mean, she looked so suspicious. She looked fearful in a very uncomfortable kind of way. And then the thing she said, as we got videos, that she was talking all over the place and not making any sense at all. She was meaning things, and what she was saying was crazy. Anyhow, does anybody have any more feelings about either Dr. Fauci? Yeah, Michael, why don't you go ahead? Michael.
Very briefly, I just want to comment. Notice no one in the press conferences does social distancing.
Oh, okay. All right.
Oh, yeah. We're people. We're important people. We don't have to socially distance.
And what do you think
Yeah,
of what do you think of Michael? What do you think of Dr. Fossey and the other woman who's with him all the time? What about them?
Yeah.
All the money.
What? Follow
All
the money.
the money.
Bingo! Home run there, Michael. I think the same thing. And who was it? The Kennedy. Just this morning.
I don't know.
That did some research and said that billions of dollars from all this are going to go to the Fossey Foundation. Was it the Fossey Foundation?
Yeah, RFK Jr. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Right, and that the foundation stands to make not millions, billions of dollars because of this. There's a huge connection there that the Kennedy, just today I saw that news clip. Very, very interesting stuff. Someone else now, I want to change the subject briefly, but let's go a little bit more around. Anybody else, just wave your hand if you got something more you want to add to this conversation. Okay, Kathleen, quickly, please. Unmute.
Am I muted, Diane? Well, I just feel that the numbers have been so jiggered. Once you start seeing Fauci, you start getting into the highly jiggered numbers, whether it's the amount that's going to be killed or who are going to die, and then those have come down drastically. Meanwhile, we're in lockdown. The whole point of going in lockdown was these numbers. And the deaths, yes, there are deaths, but they're not contextualized at all. I highly recommend people listen to James Corbett's, what's he called it, facts, damn facts and statistics. And he contextualizes all of these numbers that are scaring everybody. And everybody's buying it at face value. Whenever I see anybody wearing the mask and doing the social distancing, the first thing that comes to my head is cheap. You are buying at face value what they're telling us. We know the Chinese don't treat their people well, and it's government.
Kathleen, I'm going to interrupt you for just 1 second. Somebody's got a radio or TV on in the background, and I'm hearing this. Would you please, if there's anything else, turn it off? Does anybody have anything like that in the background? Did you hear that?
I hear it.
So is there something in the background that someone has? Because please turn it off. Any radio, TV. I think Elizabeth might be the one that is turning something down because I'm not hearing it anymore.
Well, all mics should be muted except you and me right now.
Right, exactly. Okay, Kathleen, I'm sorry to interrupt you. Please continue.
Well, I was just saying how every time I see somebody who is actually wearing the mask, it's like you bought their data. We already know that their data is fudged. It's just like 9/11. It's all false science. That with the optics of they're in the suits and they have this official and that, and the censorship, mass censorship, and people just gradually drift to the status quo and are believing all this junk. And so when I see all these people wearing masks, those are the ones who are taking it at face value. They're not the critical thinkers. I don't wear a mask. I don't practice social distancing, and I don't. There's still a lot of noise. Is everybody muted? Can you see?
Okay, Kathleen, there's something in the background, I think, where you are. Is there some kind of, can you hear something there?
Not in the least.
No, all right, whatever. All right, thank you for that. I want to go to another subject briefly, and then we'll come back to this. This is like a little break in a way, but our group originally was exploring, and still is, very much aggressively exploring ET, UFO sightings, and all the rest of that, which is very, very important. And we don't want to lose sight of that because that's very critical. And I was just wanting to ask you guys, everybody here, Monica, can you hear us? I just saw Monique there on the screen. I'm glad she joined. Anyhow, my question is, this is just asking for opinion. What do you think the ETs, we know that they monitor us. We know that they're here. I mean, we just about all know that. And what do they think about what's going on with us now as a people, as a world? What do you think they might be thinking? If anybody has any opinion on this, would you raise your hand so I can see who you are? Okay, go ahead. Elizabeth, please. What do you think the ETs might be thinking about us as a planet and people?
Well, I have been studying a modality. If you go to the website, it's called Arrayas Productions. But anyways, Ashana Dean was the person who taught it since 1999. Okay, according to that mode of thinking, basically we are in an interdimensional war. Just like on Earth, it is, we're just a reflection of what is going on in the larger multidimensional world, which is what I found is really believable is that according to that, basically there is a big black hole. They are sucking their own people in because they don't have enough quantum, because they're cut off from God's source. So that's why some people are really gonna die quickly from or painfully from this virus, and some people are immune. It's because those people who are originally incarnating from the black hole, they are more susceptible to this virus. So that's what's happening. But we are continuing this war. The light side of force is going to win. However, every year they have more and more of these desperate attempts by the dark side of the force to basically rack up their side of the attack. So then by May, there will be a counter attack by the good side of force. Okay. So every year it goes like that in waves. So
in waves. Okay. Thank you.
That's what I understood it to be.
No, appreciate that comment. Anybody else? Wave your hand so I can see you if you have a comment. Anybody else? Yeah, okay. We'll go with Michael and then we'll go to Kathleen. Mike, you first. Go ahead, please. Mike.
So, yes, the issue of other dimensional beings and where they are in all this. I think we may be seeing more presence of the interdimensional beings now. People are seeing many more ships in the sky. They're unveiling themselves. And I think that there is a heightened consciousness that is taking place among the general population more and more, and it's going to carry those of us who are conscious into a new place. And I think that we need to look in terms of, not being caught up too much in the horrors of the negativity that are real, but that don't drag us down, and it allows those fifth-dimensional beings to take power, who are evil, and to suck it up. And they're losing. They're losing right now. We've got to keep them losing because we're starting to wake up, and we need to be in touch with our own selves and be at peace every day for the next couple of days, 11 o'clock, morning and evening. There's a group meditation going on, pushing love, pushing understanding, pushing compassion for one's fellow person. So I encourage you all to take part in that.
Thank you, Michael. Okay, now, Kathleen, you're next. Please go ahead.
On Coast to Coast, there was a fascinating show about the asteroids and the comets that are out there, and then Planet X and Planet 9. Right. And if people have subscriptions, if they don't, I downloaded them, and I actually have them uploaded to a file share if people want to look into it. But even whether you believe or not that there's asteroids, an asteroid is coming that could hit us, look on Coast to Coast about the asteroids and the connection with COVID-19. The show is about asteroids and its connection with COVID-19. It is a fascinating show, whether you believe it or not. I highly recommend it.
Oh, thank you very much. No, I didn't know about that. I don't think anybody else did. Thank you.
Yeah, I'll send that link, and I'll send the James Corbett link, and I'll send the Davos link.
Bless you, bless you, bless you. Thank you so much for that. We look forward to that. Okay, anybody else? Wave your hand if you have something else you want to comment on before we move on. Hal, how about you?
No comment. I just have a piece of information that I thought Michael might be interested in. You sent this morning about the airplanes that are landing on the highways. I believe it was you. I have the wrong person. I'm sorry.
It was Michael, yeah.
Just that. all highways near airports, they have a certain amount of straight mileage built to be able to use as emergency landings for planes in case, for whatever reason, the airport runways are no good.
Oh, Michael, do you have any comment on that, please? Can you hear me? You got to unmute.
Sorry, I actually had it was breaking up a lot whenever
Yeah,
you.
I didn't hear it.
Yeah, a lot of us didn't get it. 'Cause
Yes.
it was crackling a lot. I'm
Yeah.
sorry about that.
Yeah, it was broken up.
I just heard something about airport runways not being usable sometimes, so they use roads and so forth.
Right.
Can Hal repeat himself?
Sure. That near major airports, highways and turnpikes, they have a certain amount of straight roadway that can be used as emergency landing strips. Who's landing there, for what reason, I have no idea. I just know that the highways are built to have emergency landing strips. That's all.
Okay.
I don't think Michael can hear us. Michael,
No, I heard.
I hear him now.
No, I heard.
go ahead. Do you want to comment on that about these at night, these landings of planes?
The only comment I would have is that there seems to be an awful lot of military taking part in actions all over the country and all over the place. We know that speaks to the case. We know that there was this huge article in Newsweek about Washington, D.C. being absolutely surrounded and overly populated with military types. And one can, you look at that article and you go, what, this is about coronavirus? I don't think so. It tends to suggest other things. Washington, D.C. is not being talked about.
News about that yet.
So that's all I would say. I would say, what's going on here? I'm kind of, I don't know all the military activities, just that there, as it has for the past month or so, the military activity and the calling up of various programs tends to suggest there may be something more going on than just this.
Okay, fair enough. I want to welcome Monique. Monique, welcome to the group. Can you hear me?
Hello, everyone.
Hi. It's what a pleasure to see you. Now, you're in Montreal, correct?
Well, actually, I'm in New York, but I'm in Long Island. I'm in Huntington, Long Island.
Oh, okay. I didn't realize that. Well,
Yes.
welcome. I'm glad you could join us.
Thank you, Nick. I'm so glad to
One
be
quick
here.
question I asked everybody, and I'd like to ask you now that you're here.
Yeah.
What is on your mind right now, today? Is there some particular issue or something you'd like to just, with a minute or two, talk about?
Yeah, I was talking to my mother before, and I was just like, I wish that I could find like a really good country to move to, and unfortunately, every Western country is on board with this cover story / false flag, whatever, in my opinion.
Yeah.
So I really don't know where to go. I mean, I don't know where I could even go. And any other country that's not like a Western country is very susceptible to like a regime change. So if like Ecuador, for example, loved Julian Assange, and then suddenly, somebody else gets in there and they hate him, so it's just very scary. The only thing I could think of is a small country with a strong sense of sovereignty, and I'm just not sure where. I thought about New Zealand, but they have this program. You have to invest $1 million to get automatic citizenship. So,
If I may make a suggestion, rule out the moon and Mars. Rule those right out, because we know that there are things there now. And we're beginning to realize that there's a lot going on, both on the moon and Mars for sure. And God only knows about Venus or other planets. So rule those out, please, Monique, okay? Rule them right out immediately, because you don't want to go there. What about Canada? Is Canada at all a possibility?
It's funny you should mention that. My cousin is interested in Halifax in Nova Scotia, and she said, but then I found an article recently that said Canadians are putting in a federal law that will prosecute anybody speaking out like against Bill Gates, vaccines. So I'm like, okay, there goes Canada.
There goes Canada. Everybody, there goes Canada. Forget that. Oh my God. Oh, Monique, that's wonderful.
For what it's
Yes, the last piece I just wanted to say, but then again, I just told my mother there's a
granted
battle.
it's 8 miles long.
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
It's 8 miles. Liechtenstein is 8 miles long. That's right.
Very, very short.
It's a,
Oh, yeah. But there seems to be like a battle going on right now between people who are
that
totally
in 2020 that we'd be at this point talking about these issues. I mean, this has come up like wham all of a sudden. Anybody else want to talk about? I had raised a question about what you think ETs, who definitely monitor us, what they might be thinking. Anybody else have any ideas?
Well,
Go ahead, Monique, and then.
Sure. I have actually an idea of what I think, and it may not be accurate or might be misrepresented my own personal bias, but personally, I think there's a chance that there might be a faction of higher level government that might sort of be potentially being ruled by them, potentially secretly, almost.
Okay. Do you mean the dark state? Is that what you're talking about?
Potentially, because there seems to be so much with what is that program with Eisenhower, where there were supposedly extraterrestrials that were parts of part of a program. So hypothetically, if that crazy hypothesis is true, maybe somebody is kind of ruling. Maybe the chemtrails are a program that they want. I don't know. I mean, I know that sounds very odd to say that, but I have a sort of a science fiction kind of imagination too. So I hope it's not the case, though. I really hope.
Oh yeah, I totally believe that this Chinese Communist Party is definitely moved by the ETs, the bad ones.
Curtis, I'd like to ask you, Curtis, if you will, could you make a comment on that, because I know that you're close to the subject.
Well, I'm glad you asked that. I did have this thought and this feeling the other day. I have to say, regardless of whether this is fear control or outright diddly, the idea, if ETs are watching, that if anyone, regardless of who would cause what, would do this to others on this planet, I mean, they're waiting for us to achieve a certain level of sanity. It has actually reached the point where it's actually embarrassing to be a member of the human race on this planet. And I think I have to consider that's how an ET may view this.
Captain Valiant Thor, according to some stories, who had visited here with some of his crew members, and he had gone to Washington and had said that they would give us all kinds of advanced technologies if we would agree to stop everything to do with nuclear and atomic and get rid of it now, because we're like children playing with fire, and that they were very, very concerned with that. And I'm just thinking that if we had made the deal, which we should have, of course, that we said, yeah.
Froze again.
Yeah, froze again for me too.
Frozen.
Okay. Nick,
Anybody else?
Oh, there you go. Now we can hear you. It was frozen.
Okay, good. We got you now.
Oh.
Yeah.
Could you not hear me before?
Yeah. Couldn't hear you.
Oh, I'm so sorry. I was just saying that Captain Valiant Thor, there's a lot of stories about him who visited Washington, stayed at the Pentagon, if you want to go that far with the story, and that Valiant Thor had offered advanced technologies from his planet only if we would agree to stop all testing of nuclear and atomic weaponry, get rid of it. It was like we're children playing with absolute fire. And if we would agree to that worldwide, he would give us advanced technologies that they had. And that the government came back and said, no, we will not agree to that. And Valiant then left with his crew. And if I'm just thinking that if we had agreed to that, he might have had advanced technologies about medical, about viruses, and all kinds of research. We would not have been a pickle like we are now. Just an idea. Anybody else have any comments about that haven't been done yet about ETs and what they might be thinking of us now? Michael, you had your hand up.
I don't want to go on because I talked a lot. Just very quickly, my thought was, yes, well, we did work out a deal with them where we gave them human beings for technology. So we did get the technology. The point is that only the military has it, and only the elite have it. We don't. It's been around for 40, 50 years. We're getting access to it. They are. That's the truth of the matter, and that's what we've had to deal with.